Fantastic. Well, hello and welcome to the Starseed Kitchen podcast. I'm your host, Chef Whitney Aronoff, founder of Starseed Kitchen and High Vibration Foods. This is your source for information to empower you to be a positive seed of change in your community. Join me for conversations where we learn about food, wellness, and spiritual concepts for high vibration living. I'll be sharing my knowledge and learning with you from experts, providing insight into nourishing all the layers of you, the physical, emotional, spiritual, and etheric bodies, so you can thrive in 5D. Let's get started. Well, today I'm really excited. I am interviewing Shakti Sita. She is the founder and lead teacher at the Pallas Kundalini Yoga and Meditation Center in Sedona, Arizona. She guides deeply transformational journeys through meditation, movement, and sound. A session with her completely elevates the frequency and experience of one's life. Quantum leaps are the order of the day thanks to her deep connection to her yogic lineage. Thought leader, astrologer, and yogi, Shakti Sita empowers others to create their most exalted lives and experience their timeline of freedom and prosperity. After years as a national news producer at NBC and FOX, she healed herself from chronic illness and anxiety using meditation. This innate healing wisdom informs her teaching style. So let's welcome Shakti Sita to the Starseed Kitchen podcast.
Satnam, thank you, Whitney. I'm so happy to be here.
My pleasure. And I had the opportunity to have an incredible session with you at the Palace with gongs, which truly has elevated my year in my life because I did that over my birthday weekend. So it's such a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see you again and just witness your trajectory since our very divine meeting in Sedona and our gong session. And we also went up to Kachina Woman and just we saw so many beautiful things that day.
Yeah, you really helped guide me to other great spots, other great hiking spots while I was in Sedona. So I was able to get the most out of my experience and time there.
Yeah, actually, we went down to Shaman's Cave. That's where we take the star seeds actually. So really only if you know what's up, you can go down there because it's the total Stargate.
That's a beautiful place. And it's kind of nice to get out of, you almost feel like you're out of Sedona.
Yeah.
That's
or
what's
like
really
out of planet Earth.
Yeah, so it feels really comfortable to me out there.
Yeah, both of us were like, oh, and which star planet are you from? And I was like, oh, this is my person here. This is my type of people.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that always try to introduce myself. Like there's nothing that's odd or out of this world or off topic that you can bring up today. I'm open to it all.
It's so great. It's just nice when you can go deep like that with someone. So it was just such a beautiful experience to have you out here and for your birthday and then just set the tone for your year and all the things that you've launched. And then of course this podcast and being part of this podcasting launch and venture here for you. I'm so excited.
Thank you. Well, can you tell, I know a little bit about your background, but can you tell the people that are joining us today a little bit more about your background and how you support humanity with the work you do now?
Sure. Yeah. So I came from a pretty traditional background of, going to a 4-year college and studying political science and English and all of those things and went into national news production, was at NBC News and then also Fox News. I saw both sides of the aisle and really pretty spectacularly burnt out from my time there. And simultaneous to that, had a health crisis essentially from the type of work and the energy of New York City also. And I would say that on some level, it's my soul just trying to get my attention. I'm trying to fit into a box that's not really big enough to support my soul essentially. And so I started a PR firm. I was working in that realm. And that's when I really had the earth-shattering health crisis of mine. There were little ones along the way. There's sort of those like little quakes, and then there's like the big one. And the big one for me, it came in 2016, and really wasn't sure if I'd ever make it through to the other side. And I thank God I did. And so I was coming off of anxiety medication. I was detoxing from birth control. I was detoxing from all of these different medications that doctors had prescribed me, and simultaneously having my third flare up of mono, which
Wow.
was creating chronic fatigue and an Epstein-Barr situation. During that time, I, basically, you find God when you're kind of like on your knees basically, and just, at the end of your rope. And
Hmm.
there's, this is also why I'm always so careful to, like, you don't want to rob people of what could be their greatest awakening. Sometimes you do actually have to go into those depths in order to bounce back out of it. And so for me, it came through starting to meditate and praying for my own healing. And in that moment of praying for my healing, and my first intentional relaxing of my nervous system, I had read that if I could just let my body relax, that the parasympathetic nervous system would kick in, and that I could be, basically the inner healer could come online. And so I did that, and I prayed. I just said, I am healed, I am healed. I didn't have any sort of Kundalini mantras or anything at that time. And the divine mother showed up, and I was like, this is different. This is not, this is, out of the ordinary. And she told me to surrender and relax, and I would be healed. And so the next night I did that. And I had a full Kundalini rising. So like just a physical experience of Kundalini rising, which is very mystical, powerful, very groundbreaking for the body to experience and the nervous system to experience. And on the other side of that, had to figure out what the heck just happened.
Hmm.
And also though found my healing. So it basically put me on a new frequency and experience of life. So it was like, I kind of went in one person, came out another person, and have never been the same since. And so since that moment, I've been just integrating the energy, integrating the healing. And people's kundalini will rise very naturally over the course of their life, but when you're in a sort of health crisis like I was, it can, in a very unstable way, rise. And for me, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. But I also had tools, and that's how I found Kundalini yoga. So I practice and teach Kundalini yoga because basically that's how my system is able to now function in a very normal way. And I'm able to build nervous system strength to basically handle the immense amount of energy that can flow through my body. So now I'm strong enough to do that. So that's the sort of like then and now. And then through that, incidentally, I found the bigger awakening that came after that was that food is my medicine. It was the, there's many routes into different awakenings. And for me, after that Kundalini rising experience, I found doctors, I found medical medium, I found different avenues that basically guided me into changing my diet and
Yeah.
changing what I'm eating. And through doing that, I was actually able to heal myself. I was actually able to completely conquer chronic fatigue, mono, anxiety, depression, all of these things just through what I was eating. And so, I think it was like that the week I came off of dairy and gluten. Those were the last to go. Like I had already been vegetarian, but I was a pastatarian. So I would eat like, just like just like straight pasta with like as much Parmesan cheese on it as I could have. And that didn't really work well for me. And so the week that I came off of dairy and gluten, I mean, literally, the inflammation in my body just completely melted away. I had no idea I was even inflamed, just totally melted away. My brain fog, it was like clouds parting in my brain. And I was like, is this how everyone else feels? I was so
Amazing.
pissed. I was like, is this like, are other people just walking around feeling this good? And so So I realized that I really had a very direct experience of what food can do for my body. And so I've been on that sort of journey since, which I know that you appreciate because you
I
get
really
get that.
do. And because once you know how good you can feel, it's hard. I wouldn't say it's hard. You're just not tempted to eat the things that you did many, many years ago because you just want to feel good every day and you want to
Exactly.
bounce out of bed. And I bounce
Yes.
out of bed all depending on what I put in my body.
Exactly. And sometimes I have people or clients, or everyone needs to talk to their doctor about what's right for them. I'm not in any way giving medical advice. But sometimes people come and ask me like, "Well, how did you get off of, I can't cut the cheese out. I can't cut the thing out, whatever." And keep your cheese. I don't care what you do. But if you want to, if you earnestly feel like that's something that you would feel better without, for me, that feeling of feeling so good is what motivates me. Like, no, I don't want to juice 2 stalks of celery when I wake up in the morning. In fact, it's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
But when I drink the celery juice, I feel so damn good that if I don't drink it, that's not even really, it's just not an option to not do it.
I completely understand. So for me, I stopped eating dairy for many years, not because I had any sort of inflammation or issue with it. It was simply once I learned about dairy in the United States versus dairy in Europe and the production process and the quality that we're now getting on our plates, I couldn't eat it anymore because I only wanted the best to go in my body. So I stopped for many, many years. And I actually, in the past 3 or 4 months, just started adding it back in, but I only use the best quality I can find. I only use organic, pasture raised, and raw. And if it doesn't meet those requirements, then I don't consume it. And I have found by choosing it at that quality, it gives me so much energy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it makes so much sense. And I don't know why we like made where this disconnect came from, but
Yeah.
it's like the things we're ingesting have a frequency. And if it has a high frequency, when you ingest it, you're going to have a high frequency. It's
Yeah.
actually super simple, but we're so disconnected often from what's on our plate to what we're putting in our body.
Yeah. So I'm sure part of your experience in that transitional time in New York led you to being really comfortable with intuitive eating.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've always been very intuitive about my diet and food that I eat. The healing process though, like intuitively I really wanted Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream. And so that was the last thing to go for me actually when I was it was really when I was very imbalanced from being on an SSRI for 7 years. And so I was having crazy brain fog and fatigue. And honestly, when I cut that out, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, well, it's not worth me feeling like that every day. So it was easy to compartmentalize it like that. And yeah, so it's really that's been such a journey, big piece of my journey that I don't often get to share because very few people really understand how the food is so intricately linked. It is our medicine.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And it's also an emotional medicine. So,
Mhm.
like, you started to figure out what you needed for your body, but like, you still wanted something like a Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which was supporting an emotional side of you,
Right.
that you
Exactly.
weren't
No,
ready
a
to feel yet.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's so funny that you say this though, because I just said this to my husband last night because I went to Whole Foods with him the other day. And often I don't do the grocery shopping. I kind of give him my list and he does it, which is amazing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dan. But I was with him the other day and because I'm there, our bill is always so much more because I pick random things because I'm just like drawn to the radishes this time and I'm drawn to the pomegranates this time. And I'm just drawn to all these little things. And it was so funny because I was drawn to the radishes. We don't normally get radishes. It's not like one of our kind of like normal every week of on our list. And then I saw Medical Medium recently just posted his whole thing on like why radishes are amazing. And he said that they're natural like dewormers and they're natural they just do all of these things that I was saying to my husband. I was like, I just feel a little bloated and like, I don't know, maybe I just like ate something that like had some like, you know, bugs on them or something. And like, and then the radishes are the solution to it. And I didn't know that going in, but I'm drawn to those and I can trust that that's going to
Yes.
be what will help me.
It's a natural bitter. And so a great thing to do is slice it or mandolin it really, really thin and just mix it in with your salad. And you occasionally will know it's there because you'll get the little peppery
Mhm.
bite. But the other thing I love doing is just slicing them in half and roasting them for like
Ooh.
15 minutes. And they become vibrant pink. And
Really?
really beautifully pink. So it makes a great topper on any dinner dish. And then it takes a little bit of the bitter out. So you just mix it in with your other vegetables that you've roasted it. And it's just this nice pop of pink in color, great texture. So those are two ways to enjoy radish without like just taking that little red ball and popping it in your mouth and like being a little
Yeah.
blown away by the peppery taste.
Exactly. Well, I normally just eat them just raw. But also medical medium was saying like you can eat the greens. He says it's one of the best
Yes.
medicines on the earth and we just throw it out.
Yes, I wash them well and I just blanch them in salty water when I blanch other greens.
Oh.
And then you can eat them just like that with a little drizzle of olive oil on top. Or you can then, after you blanch them, which removes like the bitterness and gets also, I feel like any other dirt or things off of them, then you saute them with a little garlic or a little shallot, and they're really, really nice.
Now you're speaking my language. More garlic, more shallots.
Yes, yes,
I'll do
absolutely.
that tonight because I'm like, how do I eat these greens? That was one of my questions last night. So thanks for answering that.
Yes, thank you. Well, the radish greens, the turnip greens, and the beet greens are
Mhm.
so good for you. And you basically have to cook them within 24 hours of picking them up from the grocery store or the farmer's market because they wilt really easily. That's
Mm.
probably why we don't see them on grocery store shelves, but they're incredibly nutrient dense. And it's also a great sign of freshness. So when you're choosing your vegetables at a farmer's market or a grocery store and the greens look really good on top of the beet or the turnip or the radish, you know they're really fresh. But you got to get them home and eat those greens that night.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this.
Oh, hey, I wish I could eat those greens more often, honestly. Like they're fantastic. So enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so medical medium, he's been an amazing resource for me for food and just guidance and stuff. And he says that basically those greens on the radishes are just as good only in comparison to wild blueberries, which is like his favorite food of all time. And he says about the wild blueberries, same concepts as, you are what you eat. The wild blueberries, they survive droughts, they survive
Yes.
floods, they survive pretty much everything. It's very hard to take out the wild blueberry crops. And so when you eat the wild blueberries, you yourself become more indestructible. And so that's why it's better to eat the wild blueberries than just like, the prissy blueberries that like
Yeah.
need very special care. Cause then you become more indestructible. I love
I
that.
I completely agree with that, and that's how I look at produce. So I actually like look for, especially at a farmer's market, the imperfect produce. So the weird shaped ones or the ones that clearly had to adapt because I want to put that adaptability in my body.
Exactly, and what's more important right now than adaptability?
Yes. So, especially if I'm juicing, so I juice for one of my clients every week, and I look for the apples that don't have bruises on them, but have like little scabs or little pieces where I see that they had to adjust to something because I want that energy
Intelligence.
in my intelligence is a perfect way to put it in my juice. Like whatever I can find that's a little imperfect is what I want.
I love this. This is honestly, I think, one of the most important concepts and conversations because if you can understand this, it awakens everything.
I think
Like
so
even,
too.
I was a little bit like, because basically I became vegan unintentionally because of the diet that I was on. And then I became vegan too, because then I was like, oh, this actually, I like this as a lifestyle and I understand this as like a no harm lifestyle. But that said, I cut out honey, and honey is like one of the best things on this planet. It's one of the greatest gifts that this planet has.
Yes.
And because it's sort of one of those gray areas for veganism. So I'd
Yeah.
only have it if like it was accidentally put on something. So I wouldn't be like super black and white about it. But then again, I went back to medical medium and I was like, what's he say about honey? And he's like, honey is so critical because our ancestors at some point, somewhere in your DNA line, someone survived off of honey.
Yeah.
And so it's so embedded in your DNA as a survival food. And when you're going through a time like we are on this planet right now, this is not the moment to cut out honey. You need honey. It's actually pure medicine. It helps your DNA remember how to survive hard times. It helps your
Ooh.
DNA remember how to not be stressed in hard times. And he says, if you need miracles in your life, the honey can bring that kind of golden miracle energy, which I'm
Yeah.
like, sign me up. So, just recently I started like having a spoonful of honey every day, just straight honey. And I'm like, why was I denying myself this joy?
I started doing that too, just in the past like month or two. And I always keep different local raw honeys in my house. I have a propolis blend as well. And then I need to go and pick up more bee pollen, which is also a super nutrient dense food. But I love listening to Matt Blackburn, which has a line of supplements called MitoLife. And he talks about, instead of stocking up on all this garbage in case there's an earthquake where you live or some sort of emergency and you need to have food supplies at home, he's like, all you need is honey. He's like, you can survive off
You
honey.
can survive off of honey. This is the whole
Yeah.
point. Like it has everything you need
Yes, especially what you need for your brain.
for your
And
brain.
at the
Yes.
end of the day, if you are stocking up food for any potential emergency, that you want to make sure you're giving your body brain food, because that's the number one thing that needs to be functioning more than anything else in, a stressful situation.
I love that. Also, how does bee pollen work? Because I feel like there's always like I'm guessing it's not like pollen, is it?
It's not, well, essentially it is pollen, but all I know is it's like an incredible source of protein and brain food and gut health.
And you can just eat it straight.
Yeah, I like to just sprinkle it on things. So
Oh,
you can
nice.
sprinkle it on a smoothie bowl, on yogurt, on ice cream, on a salad. You just kind of sprinkle a little bit on everything. You just need a little bit, like a teaspoon is more than enough.
Hmm.
Uh, and if you don't like the flavor, you just need to try a different one,
Got it.
because it's going to have the flavor of whatever's local. Um, it's hard to find sometimes at the grocery stores. It's definitely like a farmer's market treat. But there's a Colorado honey I've recently been buying. I can send you the name after this. My clients introduced it to me. I'm a real big fan. And I'm going to order theirs. They're the ones who I buy the propolis honey from. And they also have a lemon honey where they take the lemon and they add an organic lemon essential oil and whip it in. And it tastes
Mm.
like lemon frosting, and it's just raw local honey.
So good.
Yeah, just little treats. Like, we all deserve to have a little sweetness in our life. And there's so many ways to get sweetness that serves us in a
Yeah.
positive way.
Yeah. And then this is then how the energy of it all works. You're ingesting sweetness and something that has a sort of miracle type of frequency. It's a very mathematical frequency too that the bees are carrying. So then
Yes.
you become all of those things, and then your life gets to become more magical. It gets to become more in tune with the nature and the mathematics of it all. And then the sweetness of it all. Like you want more joy and miracles in your life, have a little
Yes,
honey. And
I
then
do. And I'm going to have some honey after we chat.
me too.
Like, perfect. Well, so you mentioned like more miracles and more magic. You've lived in Sedona now for a year. Do you feel like you have more of that in your life because of where you're living?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I have I basically put the prayer out all the time that I just want to live a very magical life. I want my life to be very magical and filled with miracles. And even in my Kundalini yoga lineage, Yogi Bhajan would say, I don't count on miracle. He says, I don't pray for miracles. I expect miracles. He's like, I rely on miracles. So like everything he does is a miracle. And technically even, waking up this morning and being able to record this podcast, absolute miracle.
Yeah.
But I think it's being in Sedona, I'm able to recognize the miracles more because the miracles are always happening and we kind of can lose an appreciation for them in a place like New York. It can be very dry. And here it's like everything's it's like kind of like fairies and rainbows and just there's a whole different realm that's happening here. And then of course there's more miracles and just synchronicities and things that come through in Sedona that just would not have ever happened when I was in New York. So, the way that a hummingbird is flying by, or the deer that catches my eye as I'm on a hike, and we have a moment like that just wouldn't happen in New York. So it's been very magical being here. So I moved here during the pandemic. Basically I had a yoga studio. So I opened a Kundalini yoga studio because I was like, well, this is my path now. This is just my life now. And so might as well just steer into it. Sometimes that's how destiny works. Sometimes that's how your mission
Yeah.
works. It's like, well, here it is. It's kind of staring you right in the face and you should just do the thing.
Well, they
And so,
probably nudged you a few times before, and
yeah.
then they realized that you needed to be like really hit with it in order to take the direction. So that's what they did, but you listened and then you opened the studio.
You nailed it on the head. I mean,
Yeah.
people can't see my face right now, but I am like cracking up really hard because it's true. I had a vision of it back when I was working at Fox News. I had joined Equinox, in Rockefeller Center,
Yeah.
and they have a nice little yoga studio there. And I was doing yoga frequently because I found that it actually helped. I was working the overnight shift. So I would go in the morning, like I'd open the doors, and be like, oh my God, there's light. And then I'd walk over and I'd go do yoga in the morning at Equinox. And I had a vision while I was there. I like saw it. I was kind of in a trance because I was so exhausted. I had just worked overnight and I saw a vision of it. I saw myself owning a yoga studio. I saw the floors. I saw the people coming in. I saw one of the pieces that I haven't like quite manifested is like, I saw childcare as part of it, like that women would bring their children and then they could do the yoga and everything. I saw so many very specific details. And this is like 2014. So this makes no sense to me because I'm like, I'm at Fox News right now, writing the news stories for Fox and Friends in the morning. Like, how am I supposed to open a yoga studio? That is just not my timeline. And, sure enough, it is though. So yeah, it came in pretty hard and they got my attention, whoever they are, the keepers of your destiny. They made it very clear that this is my direction. So I opened a studio in Dobbs Ferry, New York, in Westchester, New York, right outside of New York City, just a half hour outside of Manhattan. And I opened that in 2019. And in February 2020, I went out to Egypt and had many, experiences there, and then came back March 8th, 2020, taught one workshop when I got back, and then had to close my studio.
Wow.
And was forced to close by the government. And, obviously for safety, then it was very scary, but then they never reopened yoga studios. They never reopened gyms in New York. It's honestly, there's a major tragedy there, but at the same time, like, I said it to my husband the moment that I saw everything that was happening before it even happened. Like, the second I got back from Egypt, I was like, this is going to get bad and we need to go get toilet paper. And he was like, Sean, no, we're fine. We're fine. He like went to the grocery store that day and everything was fine. And then he went like the next day, he's like, they're out of everything. I'm like, I know, that's what I'm saying. So anyway, it's hard to convey what you see intuitively sometimes, but
yes.
I kind of saw the whole thing play out but I pulled him aside early on in it. And I was like, people are going to benefit from this. How do we be those people? Because any great shakeup, any great tragedy, there's always winners and there's always losers. And it just comes down to where are you positioning yourself frequency wise and how are you grabbing opportunities, not at the expense of people, not, carelessly or heartlessly, but there's a trajectory of life that you kind of get to choose when there's massive shakeups that happen.
Yes.
And so, I positioned myself immediately that I would be on the lookout for opportunity, meaning I'd be on the lookout for where I could expand from this challenge instead of contracting and, just close. I could have just easily closed the yoga studio and just been, in New York still and in our 1 bedroom apartment and I don't know, helping a few people over Zoom every day. And instead, we saw this opportunity to come to Sedona. I heard Sedona in a meditation and I was
Yeah.
like, we have to go to Sedona. And luckily my husband's like, all right, let's do it, whatever. And so we flew out to LA for a little bit. I saw my teachers, which was very helpful because I hadn't seen them in months. And then we drove out over to Sedona from LA. And we knew it the second we got here. We were like, this is our home. This is where we belong. So
That's the best
seized it.
feeling.
Yeah, it
It's the
is.
best feeling, like, and you can be traveling and not looking for it. And when you feel that feeling, you'll never forget it. And it's incredible. And there's a place for everyone on this planet where they can feel that way.
Yeah. Have you had a place where you feel that?
Yeah, I have a few places. And since I saw you, I've also done astrocartography.
Cartography. Yeah.
Yes, which gave me a little more guidance. Still left me with a lot of questions, but gave me some more guidance into trusting what I've always known. And that's what I found really interesting. For me, it's a lot of the places that I was called to as a little girl, like the places that, I would ask my parents to take me when I was 5, 6, and 7. Um, those are the places that ring strongest and have the energy that will support me best while I'm here on this planet.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we know these things intuitively. If
Yeah.
you want to look up your astrocartography, you can. It does work. It is pretty amazing. I ended up directly on my Jupiter line last year. It runs right through Arkansas. Oh my gosh. When I say the things that opened up and happened on my Jupiter line, it was just like, it was so expansive and magnetic and beautiful. I don't actually have a specific line that runs through here, but I have some
Yeah.
that surround it. It's more the magnetic frequency in
Yeah.
Sedona. It's just like my soul is just like, okay, we can rest, we can communicate, we can, it's just there's clarity here, and healing frequency. It's a very special place.
You're in your spot.
I am.
Um, so so when you guys decided to move there, did you know that you wanted to reopen your Kundalini studio?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's very important to me that Kundalini is taught and held somewhere on this planet in a way that it's connected to lineage and that it's actually being protected and held in a very sacred way.
Yes.
And because I come from a pure lineage, meaning my teacher had a teacher who had a teacher who had a teacher who had a teacher, and they all respected their teachers and didn't slander their teachers and, didn't cut themselves or sever themselves from the teachings. I actually now get to carry these teachings and transmit them to people who come through here. And one of the visuals that I got when I saw Sedona, and why I needed to come out here, is because these teachings would be safe in
Yeah.
Sedona over these next few years and onward. Because I do think that these years that we've been in and going forward, we just need to, we just got to chill. We just got to, there's a riding out that has to happen. And that's been a big piece of guidance all along. Like there's, you can ride things out and, figure out how are you going to protect what matters.
Yes.
And for me, these teachings are what matter. And so, they're not for everyone. Like this is where, people get it twisted. We're not trying to teach everyone. We're not trying to make anyone do Kundalini yoga. If your soul has a connection to Kundalini yoga, we have the teachings, meaning I have them and my teachers have them. And so that's where I'm at with that. But having a community center where these things can be practiced is honestly the biggest FU to what's happening on the planet, that I could imagine. And so it's sort of like, that's where I kind of get my juice from, is like, I know that me having 11 people in here doing a tantric healing circle is totally going against the dark forces on this planet, and I love it so much.
And I'm grateful that you're doing it, because holding the information right now is really important in all different caveats. Um, so for me, a lot is coming up regarding the Knights Templar in my life right now. It's obviously something I've always known about. I haven't wanted to explore it, but for some reason, it's really bubbling up inside me as something I have to study and experiences I have to release from my bloodline and what I'm carrying in my body. And, their goal was to help the pilgrims get to the Holy Land and to hold sacred objects and traditions and information for humanity in a safe place.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of us in our different practices have to do that right now.
We do. We really do. Because, the prophecy of the age of Aquarius is basically that there's so much information that no one can even find what's real anymore. And so you
Yes.
have to find people who actually have things that are real now. You can't just Google things. It doesn't work that way. You can
Yes.
go take a Kundalini class. If they're not connected to a lineage, you're just doing aerobics. It's not Kundalini yoga. And so we had these monks come through here. These Tibetan lamas actually were in Sedona recently, and I, made an offering to them to have them come and do a studio blessing here. So they actually came to the studio, and they did
Amazing.
this huge, beautiful consecration ceremony, and they blessed the land. They created a nectar, and they like put it all around the property, and they're like, okay, so we created the etheric structure, and everything is pure, and the deities are all happy, and blah blah. I mean, it was like, okay, great, just a casual,
Amazing.
Friday in Sedona or something like that. And but the point of this is that when they came, they introduced themselves, and the translator was introducing the two main lamas who were there, and they have a very special distinction, which is the Geshe degree. And so they're Geshe and then their name. Now, this Geshe degree basically means that they have memorized all 5 of the sacred Buddhist texts in their entirety, to the point where they know where every word is on every single page. And I'm like,
So
wow,
talented. Yeah.
so talented, right? Now they basically study it from childhood. From childhood, it's a huge honor for a family to give their child to the monastery. It's a
Wow.
huge, they pray to have a child that they can give to the monastery, because they're the ones who carry the teachings, and that's the most important part, to have access to the teachings. And so if you create a child who can then carry the teachings literally through their own memorization of it,
Yeah.
they themselves become the sacred texts. So you don't have to worry about where are you storing these sacred texts. They are the sacred texts. And where they're coming from in their lineage, they were in Tibet, and their monasteries were burned to the ground using the sacred texts to burn the monasteries. And so now they ensure that these texts will never disappear by memorizing them and passing on that memorization from generation to generation to generation. And it's not just like a normal memorization. It's like they debate the texts for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week or something like that. So there's constant debate, and they're not taken at face value. If there's an issue with the text, they will actually, go at it. So, when you think about life that way, it puts a whole different perspective, a whole different lens on the whole thing. Because for them, their parting gift to me was some sand, like a little bit of sand, from their thousands of sand mandalas that they've made. So they make
Yeah.
these. If you've ever watched a video of it, it's absolutely mesmerizing. They create these basically these deities in the sand mandalas, and they're chanting while they do it, and it's a very specific technique. And then they brush them away. So the moment that they're done with them,
Yes.
it's gone. And it's this huge teaching of impermanence, which we've all had a very good dose in this past year or 2 years now. And this impermanence of, okay, just let it wash away, is such gold. But then they keep the sand, they give some of it back to the earth, to the deities, to the Davic realms and stuff like that. But they gave me some of it, and they said, take this, and if you know someone who's about to pass or die, or if you yourself know you're going to die, you put it right on the crown of your head,
Hmm.
so that as the soul leaves the body, it picks up some of the energy from the sand mandalas, so that it ensures that you're reborn as a human in your next life with access to the teachings, not as a human with alcohol problems or a human with a huge house or wealth, a human with access to the teachings,
Yeah.
because that is the most important thing that you could do as someone who is truly committed to dharmic practices and, this situation on planet Earth.
Yeah. Anytime that you can access the history that's already in you and use that to better, steer your life, like that is really everything.
Exactly. And a lot of it is just that it comes online. So like I see it in a lot of people who, they stumble into a Kundalini class and they don't know why they're there. And meanwhile, it's like their soul dragged them there, or better yet, they're pregnant and the child brought them there,
Oh, how
or they're
lovely.
about to be pregnant and the child brought them there. So
Yeah.
often the child needs the mother to reach a certain frequency in order to come into the planet. And so they kind of bring the mother there. So I've had it twice where a mother walks in on her 120th day, which is the
Wow.
day that the soul enters the body, and they don't know it. And in one case, it was her first class ever. I've never seen her again. She literally only came on her 120th day. And
Amazing.
I kind of like did, the mathematics of it. And I was like, I think it's her 120th day. So I did all the things to like, get the frequency really high. Anyway, the memories come online because you're in a certain frequency of the practice, and it's like, oh right, I do know these things, or I remember this posture, or I remember this, I have this sort of weird flashback from a past life. And it's known as treasure revealment. Basically, there's attainment in your auric field that you're carrying from lifetime after lifetime, but it takes a certain frequency that you have to reach in order to pull it down from your aura. So
Yeah.
it can actually happen overnight where someone can like have a certain frequency that they hit, and all of a sudden an attainment of like singing can drop into their aura, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I was an opera singer in a past life, and now I'm singing.
That makes perfect sense to me that as you expand, you're better able to tap into the skills that you've already mastered.
Mhm.
Obviously they're already there. You see them when you look at people's natal charts. It's already in your blood. It's there. You just have to tap it. And that's through your frequency, which then connects to, what you're eating, what you're putting in your body, what's around you, what you're taking in with your eyes,
That's a
over and
huge
over
piece.
again.
That is a huge, you just said a very important part.
I
I love
know.
that you're totally read in. What you're taking in with your eyes also
Yeah,
counts as consumption.
it
And
does.
it's quite an important key of it. And also, the people that you surround yourself with, but there's there is a teaching that you shouldn't necessarily have pictures of your family line around your house, like a lot of
Really?
pictures of like grandparents and stuff, because that projection at you all day, every day, doesn't allow you to live your own life.
That's very true.
It's
That's
very true,
very
because the
interesting.
family projection, if your, great grandparents survived the potato famine, that projection doesn't serve you. It's not going to help you at all in this life. You can look at pictures of them, but you actually want to be careful about constantly consuming those images every
Yeah.
single day, because you're very intertwined with them. And so it's better to have more like I have a lot of tankas around and sacred objects, and things that if I look at them, I'm connecting more to my lineage, to my destiny, versus to the family line. And ultimately, when it comes to relating to the family line, your destiny, your own soul's liberation, it liberates 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. So, don't worry about disappointing grandma because you like married someone she wouldn't like. Like, just worry about your own liberation, because then grandma will be liberated.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, don't like we get it all twisted that like we have to like make our parents proud or whatever. They'll be proud of you because you're doing you. You're doing your spiritual practice and your dharma and you're happy.
Yeah.
And that happiness is what actually then will liberate them as well.
Well, this is great advice for people that want to refresh their home in the new year, which,
Yeah.
and I'm actually getting ready to move. I'll be moving and doing a lot of cleaning before the new year. And I love this advice. So that way, the things that I'm putting out in my home are the ones of the life that I'm creating and calling in for myself.
Exactly, exactly. And
That
like,
is
even
perfect.
think of like, just think of the artwork that you have around too. Like, when I really received this teaching, meaning I had heard it a few times, but then it like hit me and I was like, oh God, like I was like looking around at my apartment and I had like just a lot of weird home goods stuff and like some
Yeah.
Target stuff and like, a painting that was like a little questionable. And like basically whoever painted the thing, their consciousness is broadcasting at you.
Yeah.
And do you want that consciousness broadcasting at you? I don't know. There's certain weird, twisted art out there, and it's not necessarily going to be helpful or
Oh, yeah.
beneficial for you to be staring at it every day. So I'm constantly sort of trying to edit that part of my frequency intake.
I don't have much art in my house, but one of the things I do have is art by my great grandmother, who was a
Mm.
plein air artist. Really beautiful, beautiful landscapes. California plein air art. And I've studied mediumship for many years. And one day, my mediumship teacher just said, out of the blue, she had no idea what was in my house. She had no idea my great grandmother was an artist. She just said, when you need love, just look at your great grandmother's paintings and she'll send you love.
Oh, exactly. That's it. Cause the frequency is there.
Yes.
And that's beautiful because then that's like, it's like almost better than having a picture. Now it's not always like, it's not in every case scenario that you get rid of a picture of someone. If your mother is like, running the free world, like it might be beneficial to have a picture of her around because like that's a really good broadcast to be, working with every day. But, that's a beautiful way of receiving that energy without maybe also having like the family pattern or whatever else
Yeah.
might be broadcasting.
Yeah. So there's, so many layers to everything that we choose to put in our house. And so many things come with the things that we choose to put in our house. Now the palace, which I've had the pleasure of like having a gong session, is a beautiful, beautiful place with a lot of really unique crystals and gongs and different pieces. Um, if someone was to reach out to you for a retreat or a gong session, like what is the benefit of being in your Kundalini yoga studio? Because what
Mm.
are the things that you've chosen to put in there that help people's bodies and help people make a positive shift?
Yeah. So I'm really into this, into setting up spaces. And basically, it's because when you walk into a space, think of like when you walk into an air conditioned room, you're going to get cooler whether you mean to or not.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that I've infused this space with so much of my practice, teachings, and frequency of these teachings that when you walk in, you pick up the teachings without even having to do anything. And so, whether you go into a deep meditation, book a session or not, if you just walk through the door, you have benefited and received something just through the visual consumption, through the energetic consumption, and the word that's coming is the Davic consumption, meaning there's a lot of beings that like hanging around here
Yes.
because of the frequency of the place. So
Yeah.
the Davic realms, they're sort of like, the angelic type of unseen entities. And so, there's certain things right now. We have these two citrine towers in here that I have just been loving. My friend Andrea Wright, the crystal situation, she hooks us up with crystals all the time, and she's my crystal dealer. And she left us these citrines here. And they have just been so happy. They're these huge citrine towers, and they kind of blast the space with this golden energy. And this
Yeah.
golden energy to me is such an essential part of the Kundalini frequency. Someone who practices a lot of Kundalini will actually have a golden aura. And this golden aura, when you come into contact with someone who has a golden aura, it's very healing. And sometimes you can hear it in their voice. Sometimes it's just you walk by them in the grocery store and you're like, oh, I don't know, I just felt better. It's sort of like that air conditioning thing again, where it's like, wow, I feel cooler now, or I feel, whatever. I felt something just by being around this person. So I love having that golden frequency. And then I also have some tankas in here as well, which the monks bless. They also told me there's a mistake in one of the tankas. I was like, oh shoot. Which is a huge blessing that they told me this, because when there's a mistake, it can actually change the whole frequency of the whole thing. And so, they recommended that I replace one of them, because it will basically just click the frequency in just that much more.
Yeah, much
And
more stronger.
much more stronger, much more pure. And then, of course, I have lineage representatives on the altars here. So I have the Tradicum of Yogi Bhajan, which he said when he took that picture and he saw it, he said this contains the whole Kundalini yogic lineage through the transmission of just the picture alone. So if you see the picture, you're actually connecting to the lineage without me, again, having to say anything. You've now connected to the lineage. And then I have Guru Ram Das on the altar as well, who's a major compassion frequency and lineage holder. And then I also have a picture of Guru Jagat on the altar as well, who just recently passed this year, very early. She passed 41 years old. She's been my main teacher for a long time now. And you know, the day I knew that I would learn from her is actually the day I walked into one of her studios in Rama, New York. So this was in New York City. I walked into Rama, New York. I was signed up for a different Kundalini yoga training. It was just like too much of a schlep to get downtown. And I just went down to Rama, New York, because one of my friends was asking me to go. And I walked in, I took in the space, and I just went, whoever created this space is my teacher. That's it. That's all I needed to know. I was like, this
Yeah.
is it. I signed me up for everything. I'll do it all. And it's literally from that moment that I started actually following her around the world, and now, receiving her guidance from other realms as well. So she's on the altar as well. So spaces can do a lot. They got me into my correct lineage, really, because I mean, it could have gone a different way. I could have just stuck with that other teacher training, but because I walked into her space
Yeah.
and I felt her aura around the space, that's how I was able to connect to a lineage that's still intact and is still practicing and teaching.
And you listened.
And I listened.
Yeah.
Yes.
You listen to the signals in your body and around your body, which is, I think, one of the most important lessons we should all take in now. Because, like, as you mentioned, in the age of Aquarius, there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of people that are going to tell you that one camp is right and the other camp's wrong, and vice versa. Like, this happens a lot with food. A lot of people don't know how to eat. And so you just have to listen to what your body needs more than anything. And I feel like it's such an interesting time, because part of it is understanding our blood, our lineage, where we come from, what our family has consumed for generation after generation. So we've kind of primed our body for a certain way, but we're going through such a massive energetic transformation that what our bodies need now aren't necessarily what that lineage needed, because our frequency is changing so drastically every day, whether it's up spiral or down spiral. It's being affected by the places where we're living, by, manufactured frequencies. There's so many layers to what's going on that it's really requiring you to tap further into what you need right now.
Yeah, totally. You're so on the money. The frequency of the planet is shifting so rapidly right now. If you are the same person you were 2 years ago and eating the same thing you were eating 2 years ago, I highly recommend just looking at that. Just like do like maybe some recon on yourself about that, because it's just it's not always relevant. And I have this saying, so like on my retreats, we don't include food, because for me, one of my greatest teachings that I'm here to give is how to live a sovereign life, how to actually have sovereignty and reign over your own queendom and kingdom. And a lot of that is by not giving your power away to external sources. So if I'm feeding you and you're just like in the zombie, like I'm just going to eat what's ever in front of me, I'm really robbing you of an opportunity of sovereignty. And so, I say this to some people and they crack up, but I'm serious. Like if you can't figure out what to eat, I can't help you
I
like
agree.
with anything.
I agree.
Like I can't, like I actually just can't help. Like it's like start there, figure out what you want to eat,
Yeah.
and then we can talk about everything else.
Because I can't do my job if somebody doesn't tell me what they want.
Right.
And I actually have had clients that want to hire me, want me to cook for them, but they don't know what they want. And I can't help them. I can put a variety of menus in front of them, but they still can't figure out what they want because they're so overwhelmed with what everybody else is doing, what
Yeah.
they're reading and seeing.
Well, and you
That they
can't blame,
can't make
you
a
can't even
decision.
blame, you can't even really blame anyone. So it's like,
No.
cause it's so, it can be so inundating just to like be alive and exist on this planet right now.
Yeah.
So like, of course it's like, wait, I have to decide what to eat for lunch now. Like it's way easier to just eat the same thing every single day for 20 years and then, retire. And so it's a real practice, and especially like the work from home people too. Like, are you actually hungry? Do you actually want to take a lunch break right now? Like eating, there's sovereignty too around eating when you're actually hungry
Yeah.
and not eating when you're not hungry. These little things, just because like we've basically been taught since, uh,
The
elementary
beginning.
school,
Yeah.
here's your lunch break, eat, or you're going to be hungry the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And so we've learned to override these systems of intuition, and food is very base level intuition. And then you extrapolate that out to everything else that everyone's like, oh, what do I do with this? Well, and it's like, the answer. You actually know the answer to all of these things that you're like trying to get the psychic to tell you, or me to tell you, or Whitney to
Yeah.
tell you. And really, like, you've always known the answer,
Yeah.
and you
And
just
once you
actually have to
start
let yourself feel that.
Yeah, and once you start tapping in to yourself, you'll notice where you are on the planet, what time of year it is, like the season, and then what's going on with the moon. Those three things will affect your appetite, what you want to eat, how much you want to eat, how long of a break do you need in between meals. You start to realize you can't make yourself as structured as society wants you to be, because that's not how your body's responding. So I find, for instance, when I was in Ireland, I like didn't need to eat. I could have breakfast and dinner and a carrot in between. It was unbelievable. I was so confused because I was filled with so much energy from the
Mhm.
land, and my body was going through so much ancestral and past life healing while I was on that land. And I was just gaining so much energy from it. I just didn't really need to eat. Versus other places I go, when I'm in Arkansas, because of all the quartz crystal underneath that ground, I have to eat all day long. I'm starving. And I always leave. I've lost weight, but I'm starving. I can't stop. And then, back in normal life, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, some days you need more than others because it's a new moon or a full moon, or you're going through a different life cycle.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a good segue into all of the stuff I've been working on with my moon map, because there's so many cycles that we go through. And for us to pretend as women that we're the same every day, it's just not true.
Yeah.
So why would we eat the same every day if we're not the same every day?
Yeah.
And especially if we're moving around and all of that. So yeah, I feel that.
Perfect. Well, we've been chatting for a while, so we probably sadly need to wrap things up. But if people want to learn more about you or come to Sedona and take a Kundalini yoga class with you, how can people find out more about you and how to contact you?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is through Instagram right now, which is at Shakti_Sita_. And that's the best way to contact me. It's the best way to find my teachings. All the links will be in my bio there. You can also go to thepallas.com, and it's PALLAS.com, like Pallas Athena. And that's where you can learn about our current offerings. A lot of our group retreats are full before they even open for sale right now. So if you want to get in on those, you do have to shoot me some sort of a DM and let me know what's up. And if there's a spot, I might be able to give you one. But I do these private retreats as well. So if you want to set one up, like I have one coming up in November. I'm so excited for, someone's 40th birthday, and she's coming to town with 5 of her friends. And so she's
Perfect.
doing a private weekend with me at the Palace, and that's the perfect kind of experience that I love putting together. So we do Red Rock land healing sessions, and then we come into the studio and do gong sessions and meditation and circles and do ceremony and things like that. So it's really special to curate events like that. And then I also do one-offs, and I have a coaching program as well, which I really just love going deeper. So if you're totally new to meditation and you just feel like it can help you, and you want private teachings with me, the coaching program is actually usually your best route for the mentorship side of things.
So, as we wrap things up, can you leave our listeners with just one healthy tip that they can consider adding into their life to improve their well being?
Yes. My greatest tip I can give you is every time you inhale, use the mantra Sat. And every time you exhale, use the mantra Nam. So the mantra is Sat and Nam, SATNAM. And Sat, it's the truth, it's what's real, it's what's relevant to you. And Nam is the form of it. And when you are chanting that all day with your breath, first of all, it keeps you present, which is very helpful. Second of all, you're getting your mantra recitations in, which is beneficial because they go with you life after life. And third of all, it creates a bullshit filter in your aura, because we need that right now so that you're able to sift through information, because there's so much out there. So you'll be able to see what's real and relevant and true for you. And then you won't get caught in other people's non-realities. And so inhale Sat, exhale Nam, and take at least 11 minutes of those conscious breaths a day, and your whole life will change.
Shakti Sita, Satnam.
Satnam. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. This was fantastic. Thank you.